In this segment, I'm going to show you how to make a very special component in the biker chick bangle, and that is the copper tubing bead, similar to this one here. As you can see, all of these bangles are very different, but they all have one thing in common, and that is that I used a copper tubing bead in the bangle. And for example, this one here has quite a bit of wire wrapped around it, and it's kind of an exciting element to the bracelet. But then you can also do a more simple wrap, like the one on this one just has some copper wire wrapped around it. And this one here has some silver wire wrapped around the copper tubing bead, but it also has some double wrapped copper wire on here. So there's a lot of things that you can do with the copper tubing beads, and let me go ahead and put these aside so I can show you what the beads look like. They're just like this, and you can make them in different lengths. You can all different lengths. They're lots of fun. You can see this is quite a long one, and they're getting really tarnished. They've been sitting in my bead box for quite some time, so the first thing you'll want to do, of course, is clean them up real good with your steel wool before you incorporate them into a piece of jewelry. I also wanted to show you, just for fun, another piece of jewelry that I made with some copper tubing beads, and that is this ethnic style necklace. And this necklace, of course, is not in the bangle DVD workshop, but I hope to include this in another DVD in the future. As you can see, I used copper tubing beads that I wrapped with silver wire, and it's a nice effect. It really is a fun element to add to just about any piece of ethnic style jewelry, whether it's a necklace or a bracelet. So let's go ahead and get started. What you're going to need, of course, is some copper tubing. And this is just tubing that I purchased at the hardware store. And the size is 1/4 inch diameter. So that means that the diameter right here of the tubing, as you can see that I'm pointing to right here, that's a 1/4 inch across right here. So that's the size that I like to get. It's readily available at most hardware stores. You can find it sometimes in the refrigerator or plumbing section, and also irrigation, things like that. If you can't find the copper tubing in your hardware store, go ahead and just ask someone to help you and they'll point it out to you. It comes in various diameters, but the 1/4 inch seems to work really well for jewelry. Of course, you're going to need some steel wool, and I have a little ball of steel wool right here. I'm just going to clean the tubing a little bit. Don't make it too perfect. You know, you don't have to shine it up absolutely perfectly, but some of this tarnish and oxidation off the surface of the tubing, that's kind of nice. You're also going to need a tubing cutter. Now, this is something that you would purchase, again, in the hardware store. And they come in various sizes, and they look differently depending on where you buy it. So you might find a tubing cutter that looks differently. I have another one, and it's quite small. It's a little blue one. It doesn't look anything at all like this one, but they both serve the same function. And the way it works is that it has a blade right in here, okay, right here. And then there's a couple of rollers right here. So you would put your tubing in between the rollers and the blade, and then you tighten it down gradually and you roll it around. And I'm going to show you how to do this. And eventually the blade just cuts right through the tubing. It's very easy to do. Now, if you want to mark your copper tubing first with a Sharpie pen, you can do that, or with any kind of indelible marker. Say, for example, you knew that you wanted to have, you know, a bead that's this length right here. You could mark it if you needed to, if you felt you needed to. I personally just don't bother. I estimate. I'll look at a nice long length of tubing, and I'll just guess. I'll say, well, I think I want a bead that's, you know, about this long. And I don't really care if it's 1 inch or if it's 1.25 inches or 1 1/8 inches. I mean, this is really freeform stuff. So I don't find personally that I need to mark it, but you might want to do that with a Sharpie. And then, of course, this rubs right off with the steel wool afterward. Okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to open up the tube cutter, and it just twists open. There's like a little handle right here. You can see that if you twist it one way, it opens up. And then if you twist it the other way, of course, it closes down. So this being a kind of a fine gauge tubing, it's 1/4 inch. I don't really need to open it up too much. Let's see, let's just fit this in just like that. Okay. And I'm going to now just hold the tubing, and it's a little slippery because it is metal, but I'm going to hold the tubing so that it's between these two rollers right here. And then I'm going to very gently tighten this down. Not all the way. Now, the temptation is to tighten this down all the way. And what happens when you do that is you end up smashing the end of the tubing. So you don't want to do that. Just tighten it down until it holds like this. Okay? Now I'm going to separate this out a little bit so I can get at it. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to just roll this around the tubing just like that. Okay? And what you've done is you have scored the tubing. So now I'm going to tighten it down just a little bit more, and I'm going to bring this around one more time like that. Okay? And then I'm going to tighten this just one more turn, and around we go, and it comes right off. Now, the great thing about cutting the tubing in this way is that you end up with a bead that has nice smooth ends to it. You can file these if they're a little bit if they're a little bit rough, but generally speaking, you're going to come up with a bead that has a pretty nice smooth end on each end. The one thing that you really don't want, again, is to smash the ends of the tubing by tightening down this tool right here too quickly. Okay? So that's your copper tubing beads, and like I said, they're wonderful in the biker chick bangle, fantastic in beaded bangles, and other forms of jewelry that have kind of an ethnic look to them.